So, good evening.
Guten Abend.
Let's open with prayer.
Lasst uns mit Gebet anfangen.
Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this evening worship we can now have.
Lieber himmlischer Vater, wir danken dir für diesen Abendandacht, die wir jetzt haben können.
And thank you that you never change and that your word is sure.
Und danke, dass du dich nie veränderst und dass dein Wort wahr ist.
And that we don't need to depend upon our own human judgment, but on the sure word of prophecy.
Und dass wir nichts auf unseren eigenen Verstand und Ermessen verlassen müssen, sondern auf deine Wort der Prophezeiung.
And please come now and teach us through your Holy Spirit.
Und bitte kommt jetzt und lehre uns durch den Heiligen Geist.
And help us to grasp really the themes of the plan of salvation.
Und hilft uns, das Thema des Erlösungsplans wahrlich zu ergreifen.
And please bless also Brother Lawrence, who is presenting now your word.
Und bitte segne Bruder Lorenz, der jetzt dein Wort vorbringt.
And bless also the translation and the technique.
Und bitte segne auch die Übersetzung und das Technik.
And please help us all that we would be careful and attentive listeners.
Und bitte hilft uns, dass wir sorgfältig und wachsame Zuhörer werden.
And help us also to bring your word into practical application.
Und hilft uns auch, dass wir dein Wort in der Praxis umsetzen können.
In Jesus' name, amen.
In Jesu Namen. Amen.
Okay, so welcome back.
So, willkommen zurück.
And this evening we want to continue with our studies on the book of Daniel.
Und heute Abend wollen wir unsere Studien an das Buch Daniels fortsetzen.
And I think it was Friday night or so, Thursday night, we looked at Daniel 11.
Und es war Freitag oder vielleicht sogar Donnerstagabend haben wir Daniel 11 angeschaut.
And we gave a short overview of the first few verses.
Und wir haben ein kurzes Überblick über die ersten paar Versen gemacht.
And this is where we want to continue from.
Und von da möchten wir weiter.
So let's go to Daniel 11.
Also lasst uns in unserer Bibel zu Daniel 11 gehen.
And what we basically came to understand is that Daniel 11 is this full understanding of the revelation.
Das, was wir verstanden haben, ist, dass Daniel 11 ist der volle Verständnis der Offenbarung.
And this is what you will then know, or basically this is what gives you the knowledge about how the Lord sets up kings and takes down kings.
Und dies ist es, was wir verstehen werden, wie der Herr letztendlich Könige auf- und absetzt.
Okay, so let's remind ourselves a little bit.
Oder soll ich sagen, dies wird uns das Verständnis darüber geben. Also lasst uns etwa darüber in Erinnerung bringen.
So let's read the first 3 verses.
Also wir lesen die ersten 3 Verse.
Also I, in the first year of Darius the Mede, even I stood to confirm and to strengthen him. And now will I show thee the truth. Behold, there shall stand up yet 3 kings in Persia, and the 4th shall be far richer than they all. And by his strength, through his riches, he shall stir up all against the realm of Grecia. And a mighty king shall stand up, that shall rule with great dominion, and do according to his will. Okay, so historically we understand, the 4th was Xerxes.
So historisch gesehen, wir verstehen, dass der 4. hier Xerxes war.
But in our time, it illustrates at least in principle Donald Trump. Okay.
Und in unserer Zeit, das stellt zumindest im Prinzip Donald Trump dar.
Okay, and then the mighty king that shall come in verse 3 was Alexander the Great. Right?
Dieser mächtige König, der kommen sollte in Vers 3, das war Alexander der Große.
And we saw basically that here's this war illustrated between Trump against Greece, and then Greece would strike back. Right?
Wir haben hier gesehen, dass dieser Krieg ist zwischen Trump gegen Griechenland und dann das Griechenland zurückschlagen wird.
And Greece, and Daniel 11 is speaking about which war continuously?
Also in Daniel 11 spricht über welche Krieg fortwährend
North and South.
zwischen Nord und Süden.
So therefore this is also just another illustration of the war between the North and the South.
Deswegen das hier ist nur eine weitere Darstellung von dem Krieg zwischen Nord und Süden.
And we understand the Greeks illustrate this globalists,
Und wir verstehen, dass die Griechen stellen diese Globalisten dar.
and this is what also Trump warred against. Right?
Und das ist auch das, wogegen Trump sich anlehnte.
But as Xerxes, he first gained a few minor victories, but eventually he lost the battle.
Und so wie Xerxes am Anfang ein paar geringere Kämpfe gewonnen hatte, letztendlich hat er den Kampf verloren.
Okay. And Trump, he basically also lost the battle for now at least. Okay.
So wie Trump jetzt hat für den Moment zumindest den Kampf verloren.
Okay. Because then the Greek king comes, the king of the globalists, which is now Biden. Right?
Dann kommt der griechische König auf, der König dieser Globalisten, und das ist Biden.
Okay. And we understand this was then this great horn that came up here,
Wir
right?
verstehen, dass das hier dieser große Horn war, der hier aufkam.
Taken from Daniel 8, okay.
Das ist von Daniel 8
Because the
entnommen.
great horn was Alexander the Great. Right?
Der große Horn war Alexander der Große.
Okay, so therefore in this time here, which is this time here,
So deswegen in diese Zeit hier, was diese Zeit hier ist,
so this is the time when now this great horn rules.
so dies ist der Zeit, wo dieser große Horn regiert.
Okay, but we understand, and this is also what it says now in verse 4, let's read verse 4.
Wir verstehen, und das ist auch das, was in Vers 4 sagt, und das lesen wir jetzt.
And when he shall stand up, his kingdom shall be broken, and he shall be divided toward the four winds of heaven, and not to his posterity, nor according to his dominion which he ruled, for his kingdom shall be plucked up even for others beside those. Okay, so this is now when the great horn is broken, and now four kingdoms come up.
So hier ist es, wo dieser große Horn gebrochen wird, und in seiner Stelle 4 Königreiche kommen herauf.
Okay, and how was Alexander broken? How did he die?
Und wie ist Alexander gebrochen worden? Wie starb er? Too drunken.
Yes, he had this double drunken feast, okay,
Er hat diese gedoppelte Trunkengelage gehabt.
and then he received fever, right?
Dann hat er ein Fieber bekommen.
And within 10 days he died.
Und
Okay.
innerhalb von 10 Tagen ist er gestorben.
And we understand this marks here this 10 days, right?
Wir verstehen, dass das hier markiert diese 10 Tage.
10 days before the prediction comes true.
10
Okay.
Tage noch bevor der Vorhersage zutrifft.
Was it in Shusha?
Shushan?
Yeah.
No, I think in. Let's see, maybe.
Wikipedia saying Shusha.
It says?
What's this? Yes.
This drunken feast, was it in Shusha?
I don't know.
Yes.
But I think we can look it up. I don't know.
Okay.
No, it says here at Babylon. It says just go to your notes under the heading Alexander's death.
So geht in den Notizen unter den Titel Den Tod von Alexander.
And then the second paragraph under point 23.
Der zweite Absatz.
It says, in the month of June, 323 BC, he celebrated the funeral of Hephaestion at Babylon. So it was in Babylon.
So, es war in Babylon.
Okay, so in Babylon, he then drunk this wrath. Okay.
In Babylon hat er diesen Zorn getrunken.
Okay. And who else had this drunken feast and 10 days later he died?
Und wer hat noch einen trunkenen Fest gehabt und 10 Tage lang später gestorben?
Nabal, right?
Nabal.
Let's just keep your finger here. Let's just remind ourselves. Let's go to 1 Samuel 25.
So, halte den Platz hier und geht zum 1. Samuel 25.
And it was not so long ago that we went through this chapter,
Und es war nicht allzu lange her, dass wir diesen Kapitel durchgegangen sind.
and basically we then saw that it's at this time here, this final test, at the end of the final test,
Dass wir gesehen haben, dass es hier dieser finale Test ist, am Ende des finalen Tests.
this is when you bring this perfect offering like Abigail.
Das ist hier, wo du diesen perfekte Opfergabe bringst, so wie Abigail.
Okay, so but once she gave this perfect offering, then she returned, and this is when Nabal had this drunken feast.
Und nachdem sie diese perfekte Opfergabe brachte, sie ist zurückgegangen und es ist hier, wo Nabal diese Trunkenfest hatte.
Let's just read this. Let's read verse 35
So, lass uns dies lesen. Lesen die Verse 35 von
To
35 an
38
bis 38
to 39.
oder sogar 39.
It says, So David received of her hand that which he had brought him, and said unto her, Go up in peace to thine house. See, I have hearkened to thy voice, and have accepted thy person. So David now receives here this perfect offering, and he sends her in peace away.
David erhält diese perfekte Opfer und sendet sie im Frieden ihrem Weg.
So she has now peace, right?
Sie hat jetzt Frieden.
Peace with God, for her is the time of peace already.
Frieden, sorry?
Peace with God, she has now, and for her is now the time of peace already.
Sie hat Frieden
Again.
mit Gott und für ihr ist jetzt das Zeit des Friedens gestartet.
Verse 36.
Vers 36.
And Abigail came to Nabal, and behold, he held a feast in his house, like the feast of a king. And Nabal's heart was merry within him, for he was very drunken. Wherefore she told him nothing less or more until the morning light. But it came to pass in the morning, when the wine was gone out of Nabal, and his wife had told him these things, that his heart died within him, and became as a stone. And it came to pass about 10 days after, that the Lord smote Nabal, and he died. And when David heard that Nabal was dead, he said, Blessed be the Lord, that hath pleaded the cause of my reproach from the hand of Nabal, and hath kept his servant from evil, for the Lord hath returned the wickedness of Nabal upon his own head. And David sent and communed with Abigail to take her to him to wife. Okay, so it marks this drunken feast here.
So, es markiert diese trunkenen Fest hier.
And then 10 days later, Nabal dies,
Dann 10 Tage später stirbt Nabal.
or Alexander dies.
Oder sogar Alexander stirbt. Derselbe Symbol.
Okay, and it says here, when Nabal dies, what happened?
Es sagt hier, wenn
In
Nabal
verse
stirbt,
39,
was geschieht im Vers 39?
what kind of judgment was it?
Was für ein Gericht ist das? Righteous.
Brought it back upon his
It says in verse 30.
own hand,
Er hat
right?
es über seinen eigenen Kopf gebracht.
And I don't want to speculate, okay, but I'm speculating now.
Also ich möchte nicht spekulieren, aber ich spekuliere jetzt.
Okay. Because what did Alexander receive during the
Was
10 days?
hat Alexander erhalten während diesen 10 Tagen? Fieber.
It was a fever,
Es
right?
war ein Fieber.
So, and it's this whole test is about what?
Und dieser ganze Test hier für uns handelt sich über was?
The vaccination that the globalists have brought upon the people.
Yes,
So, diese Impfung, die diese Globalisten über das Weltbevölkerung gebracht haben.
because of a virus that causes a fever. Okay.
Wegen einem Virus, der ein Fieber verursacht.
Okay, so basically they were the ones that brought this virus into the play, right?
So, die sind diejenigen, die diese Virus auf der Weltbühne gebracht haben.
And we see the Lord, He will return these things upon their own head,
So,
right?
wir sehen, der Herr wird diese Sachen auf ihrem eigenen Haupt zurückbringen.
So there might be a chance, okay, that Biden will catch COVID, okay.
Eine gute Chance, dass Biden Covid fangen wird.
This will come upon his own head,
Es wird auf
He
sein
will die
eigenes
of this.
Haupt zurückkommen, davon wird er sterben.
But that's just, we still need to
Proof
prove this if this is valid, but definitely you have the principle, what they make comes back upon their own head, okay.
Wir müssen das noch beweisen, ob das nun mal gültig ist, aber auf jeden Fall hast du das Prinzip, das was sie tun, kommt auf ihren eigenen Häuptern zurück.
And Alexander died of a fever,
Und
okay.
Alexander ist von seinem Fieber gestorben.
So just some thoughts to dwell upon. Maybe you can prove it or disprove it.
Nur einige Gedanken darüber zu sinnen. Vielleicht können wir das beweisen oder auch nicht.
Okay, so anyways, let's go back to Daniel 11.
So, lasst uns jetzt wieder zu Daniel 11 zurückgehen.
And so in verse 4 we saw then basically that these 4 horns would come up.
So in Vers 4 haben wir gesehen, dass hiernach kommt diese 4 Hörner herauf,
It would be in here.
die hier sein werden.
Or in this illustration would be here, right?
Oder in diese Darstellung, es wird dann hier sein.
Okay, because this here is this here.
Weil dies hier ist nämlich dies hier.
So here we have Biden falls, right?
Also hier haben wir, wo Biden fällt.
Okay, so this would be.
Das wäre dann auch Biden hier.
Okay, so and then you have the 4 horns or the 4 kingdoms, which is this global League of Peace.
Also diese 4 Hörner oder diese 4 Königreiche, was diese weltweites Bündnis des Friedens darstellt.
Okay, in the little time of peace.
In der kleinen Zeit des Friedens.
Okay, now let's continue.
Dann lesen wir weiter.
Let's read now verse 5.
Lesen wir Vers 5.
It says, "And the king of the south shall be strong, and one of his princes, and he shall be strong above him, and have dominion, his dominion shall be a great dominion." So here we have 2 princes mentioned, right?
Also hier haben wir 2 Prinzen, die erwähnt werden.
So the king of the south, and then one of his princes that is stronger than the king of the south.
So der König des Südens und einer von seinen Prinzen, der stärker ist als der König des Südens.
So one of Alexander's princes,
Einer von Alexanders, seine Prinzen.
which was then Seleucus, the king of the north.
Seleucus, König des Nordens.
Okay, so therefore in verse 5 we have now the king of the north and king of the south introduced here.
So in Vers 5 haben wir König des Nordens, König des Südens eingeführt.
In verse 6,
Vers 6 jetzt.
"And in the end of years they shall join themselves together, for the king's daughter of the south shall come to the king of the north to make an agreement. But she shall not retain the power of the arm, neither shall he stand nor his arm, but she shall be given up, and they that brought her, and he that begat her, and he that strengthened her in these times." Okay, so what can we see just from these verses here?
So, was können wir sehen noch von diesen Versen hier?
What do the king of the north and king of the south now want to do?
Was wollen König des Nordens, König des Südens tun?
Yes, they want to make an agreement.
Sie wollen eine Übereinstimmung.
Okay, so, and when you also jump down to verse 27,
Und wenn wir zu Vers 27 gehen,
there we see the same illustration that the king of the north and king of the south try to come to some kind of agreement. Okay.
können wir denselben Darstellung sehen, wo König des Nordens und König des Südens eine Art von Übereinkommen treffen wollen.
It says, "And both these kings, king of the north and the king of the south,
Beide von diesen Königen, den Norden und Süden,
so both these kings' hearts shall be to do mischief, and they shall speak lies at one table, but it shall not prosper, for yet the end shall be at the time appointed." Okay, so they will try to come together, but they speak lies to each other and it won't work out.
so, sie versuchen zusammenzukommen, aber sie lügen einander an und es wird zu nichts kommen.
And also here in verse 6, this agreement didn't bring anything fruitful about.
Und auch hier in Vers 6, dieser Versuch, ein Übereinkommen zu treffen, ist auch nicht zustande gekommen.
Okay, so let's read now the historical account of this verse here in verse 6.
So, lasst uns die historische Bericht über Vers 6 lesen.
Go to your notes, please, to page 3, at the bottom of page 3.
Geht zu der Notizen. So, unten auf Seite 3. I don't have page numbers. Bernice.
Bernice.
Unter Bernice.
Okay. So he first quotes here verse 6.
So, er zitiert zuerst Vers 6, wie wir gelesen
So
haben.
you can just read the second paragraph.
So, wir fangen jetzt in den zweiten Absatz an.
There were frequent wars between the king of Egypt and Syria. So north and south.
So,
Or
Norden und
south
Süden.
and north.
Oder Ägypten, Süden, Syrien, Norden.
Especially was this the case with Ptolemy Philadelphus, the second king of Egypt, and Antiochus Theus, third king of Syria. They at length agreed to make peace upon condition that Antiochus Theus should put away his former wife Laodice and her 2 sons, and should marry Berenice, the daughter of Ptolemy Philadelphus. Ptolemy accordingly brought his daughter to Antiochus, bestowing with her an immense dowry. So here we can see they want to make peace.
So, hier können wir sehen, sie wollen Frieden treffen.
And yeah, it's about these 2 women here. Laodice should be exchanged to Berenice.
Und es handelt sich über diese 2 Frauen hier. Laodice soll weggetan werden und Platz machen für Bernice.
And now he goes on to say,
Und es sagt weiter.
but she shall not retain the power of the arm, that is, her interest and power with Antiochus. And so it proved, for some time shortly after, in a fit of love, Antiochus brought back his former wife Laodice, and her children to court again. Then says the prophecy, neither shall he, Antiochus, stand, nor his arm or seat. Laodice, being restored to favor and power, feared lest in the fickleness of his temper, Antiochus should again disgrace her and recall Berenice, and conceiving that nothing short of his death would be an effectual safeguard against such a contingency, she caused him to be poisoned shortly after. Neither did his seed by Berenice succeed him in the kingdom, for Laodice so managed affairs as to secure the throne for her eldest son, Seleucus Callinicus. Okay. So, what can we see here?
So, was können wir hier sehen?
Who came to whom and what happened?
So, wer ist zu wem gekommen und was geschah?
Yes, so the southern woman came to the state power of the north, right? Who was aligned with the north.
Die südliche Frau kam und hat geheiratet den König des Nordens.
No, the state power that was aligned with the north.
Also der Staatsmacht, der in Übereinkommen war mit dem Norden.
Because it's a woman and a king, right?
Weil es ist eine Frau und ein König.
So the papacy is the one that has this northern mindset,
Also der Papst ist derjenige, der diesen nördlichen Gedankengut hat.
and there's always the king that aligns itself either with the northern doctrine or the southern doctrine.
Und es gibt immer einen König, der sich übereinkommt mit den nördlichen Lehre oder den südlichen Lehre.
Okay, so in Laodice would be this illustration of this northern doctrine, right?
Und Laodice wäre diese Darstellung von diesen Nordlehre.
Okay, so in I was thinking about how this could apply here, in this time. Okay,
Ich habe darüber nachgesinnt, wie das hier in diese Zeit angewandt werden konnte.
because at the moment you have the southern doctrine in the ascendancy, right?
Denn im Moment hast du den südlichen Gedankengut in der Vorherrschaft.
They're not a religious power.
Aber die sind nicht seine religiöse Macht.
Yeah, but they have an ideology.
Aber die haben eine Ideologie.
So
Yes, but not a religious one.
no, but in a sense they have a communism, right? It's like a woman, wouldn't it be?
Well, I prove that.
I mean, a woman is a doctrine.
It's a religious doctrine.
So eine Frau ist eine religiöse Lehre.
What about the French Revolution? That was also this.
Yes, the woman of reason, yes.
I mean, a
But
woman is illustrating.
That was still a religion.
Yes, but it's the religion of the South, right? So it's a woman. So a woman is a religion
Yes,
or
but I'm saying
ideology.
communism wasn't a religion. No? It's all the same.
No, it's an thought process, doctrine or
Es ist ein
ideology.
Gedankengut, eine Ideologie.
And,
Anti-religion also.
yeah, I also would say so. Okay, it's like a religion is just a belief system in a sense.
Eine Religion ist nur ein Glaubenssystem.
Okay. So, anyways, so if we would apply this now to this time here,
So wenn wir das hier zu dieser Zeit anwenden würden,
and there's now some problems, at least in my mind, okay,
ich habe einige Probleme, zumindest die ich sehen kann.
because we need to understand, okay, who would be this king that would now receive, or which is formally aligned to the north, that would now receive this southern doctrine here.
Denn wir
Okay.
müssen verstehen, wer dieser König ist, der mit dem Norden vereint ist, der diesen Lehre erhalten wird.
Because it would be, in our time, would be Trump, right?
Denn in unserer Zeit, das werde dann Trump sein.
At least, or the Republican Party, or whoever would come here now into
Zumindest der republikanischen Partei.
ascendancy.
So, derjenige, der in der Herrschaft kommen wird.
Okay, so, but that might be the case, okay, so that they somehow,
Is that woman not Protestantism now?
Ist diese Frau nicht dem Protestantismus?
maybe, what would be your thoughts for this?
No, I'm just saying that the Protestants, it's the daughters of the woman of the north, right?
So, die Protestanten sind die Tochtern der Frau des Nordens.
Mhm.
Okay, that's the religion of the 10 kings.
Und das ist die Religion von den 10 Königen.
So, because that's the religion of Ahab.
Das ist die Religion von Ahab.
Okay, so I'm just making some thoughts, because is this not Protestantism that puts the Sunday law in place, but then Catholicism takes the ascendancy again?
Also Protestantismus den Sonntagsgesetz auf, aber der Katholizismus nimmt den Oberherrschaft wieder.
Okay, so you might be right, but the only point is then you need to explain in the sense that, because then the king of the south would be always Protestantism, right? And we would not say it's communism.
It's not the king of the south, it's a woman. No, nobody's saying it's the king of the south. This is a woman that the king of the south, is Egypt, the 10 kings.
So, König des Südens ist Ägypten, der 10 Könige.
So we've gone through this many times, that the king of the 10 kings is the one that aligns itself with the woman of Babylon.
So, der König von der 10 Könige ist derjenige, der sich mit diesen Frau von Babylon in Übereinstimmung
But
bringt.
within those 10 kings, there's 2 different thought processes.
Aber innerhalb von diesen 10 Könige gibt es 2 Gedankengüter.
Okay, but I'm just saying, if this is about religion, this would be, it's just my thought, but this could also be wrong, but it's Protestantism that has the ascendancy as the Sunday law,
So, Protestantismus hat der Herrschaft am Sonntagsgesetz.
but ultimately the Pope is going to come back on the throne, so he's going to put them under his rule.
Aber letztendlich will der Papst wieder auf den Thron kommen. Er wird sie über seine Herrschaft bringen.
I mean, I'm totally open because I also don't understand it, okay?
Also ich bin offen, weil ich verstehe das hier auch nicht.
But I would just make the argument, you know, if we say the king of the south is communism,
Also ich mache nur das Argument, dass wenn wir sagen, König des Südens ist der Kommunismus,
then this is the woman of the king of the south.
und das ist der Frau vom König des Südens.
And
But the king of the south is the 10 kings. King of the south is not communism. The
König
king of the south,
des Südens ist der 10 Könige.
king of the south is a mixture of both.
König des Südens ist eine Mischung aus beiden.
both of what?
Both ideologies of north and south.
So beide
Through
Ideologien.
this, I don't know how
from
many
Norden
times
und
you're now
Süden.
saying that all those 10 kings are communist.
No,
Das kann ich sagen, dass alle 10 Könige Kommunisten sind.
what I say is that they eventually will take on the religion of the north. So
No,
But
they have sympathies for beforehand, that's what I'm saying.
I mean, there are always some kings that favor the north and some kings that favor the south. But it's like these two different women that you have.
Yes, but the civil war, the war that goes on between the north and south is a civil war. It's an internal war.
Also der Krieg zwischen Norden und Süden ist ein Bürgerkrieg, ist ein interner Krieg.
So,
Yes. So, but at the moment, right, we see this war between the north and the south played out. Right? So
Im Moment sehen wir diesen Krieg zwischen Norden und Süden, wie es sich ausspielt.
Trump is the one who aligned himself with the Protestants. He's the north.
Und Trump ist derjenige, der sich in Übereinstimmung ist mit den Protestanten und er ist im Norden.
And Biden is the south. He's this globalist, communist.
Und Biden ist der Süden, der ist diese globalistische, kommunistische Gedankengut.
Therefore, these are the two women, right? So
Deswegen hier haben wir die zwei Frauen dargestellt.
these two ideologies that control these different kings.
Diese zwei Ideologien, die diese zwei Königen kontrollieren.
you have to explain, if you're saying they're the two women, then who is it speaking about? And Daniel 11:31.
So, wenn du sagst, dass das jetzt die zwei Frauen ist, über wen spricht es in Daniel 11:31?
Because from 31 onwards, right, it speaks about the because from 31 all the way up to, like for instance, from 36 to 39, it's all talking about this
Papacy.
woman, Babylon.
Von 36 bis 39 spricht über diese Frau Babylon.
That's not Protestantism, that's the
Das ist
papacy.
nicht Protestantismus, sondern
Yes.
der Papsttum.
But the Protestants are the daughters of the north, right? So they are part of the north.
Protestanten sind Töchtern des Nordens, deswegen sind sie Teil des Nordens.
When no.
Aber wann?
Huh? The whole time.
The whole time.
At the Sunday law, right?
So,
That's
am
when,
Sonntagsgesetz.
when they make a Sunday law.
Wenn sie ein Sonntagsgesetz
Yes.
machen.
They share the same ideologies, but as I said, I'm open. I also want to understand better, but that's just where my thoughts are at the moment. But if you can prove otherwise, then I'm open to hear these things.
Also ich bin nach wie vor offen, also ich möchte das auch besser verstehen, aber wenn du das Gegenteil beweisen kannst, dann ich bin offen, das zu hören.
Okay, so that's definitely something we need to
Yes.
then further investigate, because that's obviously
Und das ist natürlich
important that we
eine Sache, die wir tiefer untersuchen
understand this
müssen.
woman of the south. Okay.
Wir müssen diese Frau des Südens verstehen.
Okay, then maybe let's not make any application of this for now, okay?
So, lasst uns für den Moment keine Anwendung hiervon machen,
But just note the principles that we can see. They want to come together, they want to make peace.
aber die Prinzipien können wir bemerken, dass sie zusammenkommen wollen und ja, Frieden miteinander treffen wollen.
And at the end, Laodice prevails, okay?
Und am Ende Laodice gewinnt.
And I think we all can agree that Laodice definitely illustrates the northern doctrine, right?
Und ich glaube, wir sind in Übereinstimmung, dass Laodice stellt der nördliche Gedankengut oder Lehre dar,
Okay, so which is this papal mindset.
was diese päpstliche Gedankengut ist.
Okay, so now let's go to verse 7.
So lass uns Vers 7 anschauen.
Yeah, just a point on that, right?
So eine Gedanke dazu.
Communism, for instance, the four horns, right? The time of peace. What does that represent?
Also die vier Hörner und diese Zeit des Friedens, was
Because
stellt das dar?
This marriage here, when this
Mhm.
woman comes, it marks a time of peace.
Weil diese Hochzeit da, wenn diese Frau kommt, Bernice, es markiert eine Zeit des Friedens.
And the way that we would understand it, right? Biden here is ruling in this time.
So wie wir das verstehen werden, also Biden herrscht hier in dieser Zeit
And what is he pushing?
und was erzwingt er?
communist agendas, right?
kommunistische Agenda.
So what we would be saying is that when it comes in and Biden falls,
So, was wir denn sagen würde, ist, dass wenn es hierzu kommt, wo Biden stürzt,
and we always understand that out of those four horns there comes the north.
und wir haben das immer so verstanden, dass aus diesen 4 Hörnern hier kommt das Norden herauf.
Okay, and the reason being is when you get to the end there, they're going to hate, because the whole point of the South is like an open rebellion. The people will hate it that much that they get rid of it, that this mentality, people are like, no, we can't have that.
Die Menschen
So it has to
hassen
end.
diese Mentalität des Südens so sehr, dass am Ende, die wollen es ganz
No,
loswerden.
it's not the end, Scott. At midnight there.
Sie wollen es hier ganz loswerden.
Okay, so the point is that's marking a time of peace. Now, just for an argument's sake, if this woman, which would be Berenice there, was this communism, how could it be communism that would be all joining together in peace? That wouldn't make any sense.
So, wenn diese Frau Bernice Kommunismus ist, wie kann denn das Kommunismus, der zusammenkommt mit der König des Nordens, Frieden denn machen? Das würde denn keinen Sinn machen.
Because I understand what brings the peace is the separation of church and state.
So, ich verstehe, was das Frieden bringt, ist eine Trennung von Staat und Kirche.
Okay.
Yes. That's true. But, I mean, the North and the South that are warring at the moment are the Republicans and the Democrats, right?
Den Norden und Süden, die sich gerade gegenseitig bekämpfen, sind die Demokraten und den Republikanern.
So if they would come together to make an agreement here,
So, wenn sie hier zusammenkommen würden, um eine Übereinstimmung zu treffen,
then it seems, based upon this verse, now the North, the Republicans would be in the ascendancy because the South now sends his woman to basically make peace with the North, right?
scheint es, der Norden ist hier in der Heraufkommen und den Süden sendet diese Frau, um Frieden zu
Also,
treffen.
You also need to ask yourself, why would now the Democrats send Protestantism to the Republicans?
Yeah, that way,
Was
yes,
ist denn
but I
so-
wasn't looking at that.
Du musst es denn so die Frage stellen, warum werden die Demokraten Protestanten senden, um Frieden zu machen?
The Democrats are not sending Protestants.
Die Demokraten werden keine Protestanten senden.
So it's more like that they both try to somehow make peace
Compromise.
and compromise with each other. Yeah.
Es scheint, als wenn die beide so Kompromisse miteinander schließen würden.
So the North is more like no ascendancy, but they also now accept like communistic things, principles to basically comfort the Democrats or
Die
whatever.
Norden sind in der Heraufkommen in der Oberherrschaft und sie machen diesen Friedens und diese Kompromisse, um Frieden mit den Südmächten zu schließen. Then when if Laodice comes back, then that would mark the Sunday law, right? In the bigger threat when Laodice comes back and
Yeah.
yes,
After the time of peace, now Laodice
yes, comes back and
Take
kicks
his
out
hands,
the
yes.
communists fully and takes on a dictatorship kind of thing.
So that would be at least. I will try to explain it here, okay?
So würde ich auf jeden Fall auf diese Art versuchen, das hier zu erklären.
But let's study it further, okay?
Aber lasst uns das tiefer studieren.
Okay. So now let's go to verse 7,
So gehen wir jetzt zu Vers 7.
because at the end, Laodice definitely prevails against Bernice or against this. So,
Denn am Ende Laodice die Oberhand gewinnt über
Bernice.
Bernice.
Okay, and because now she's now taking control,
Und weil sie jetzt die Kontrolle übernimmt,
so the North is now definitely established.
so das Norden ist jetzt etabliert,
Now the South wants to retaliate again. Okay.
will der Süden zurückschlagen.
Okay, so now verse 7.
Vers 7.
But out of a branch of her roots shall one stand up in his estate, which shall come with an army, and shall enter into the fortress of the king of the north, and shall deal against them, and shall prevail. And also shall carry captives into Egypt their gods, with their princes and with their precious vessels of silver and of gold. And he shall continue more years than the king of the north. So the king of the south shall come into his kingdom and shall return into his own land. So here we can see now that the king of the south now pushes back against the north.
So hier
Ja.
können wir sehen, König des Südens stoßt zurück gegen König des Nordens.
So let's read now what Uriah Smith had to say about this.
Lasst uns lesen, was Uriah Smith darüber zu sagen hat.
So he quotes again verse 7 to 9,
So, zitiert zuerst die Verse 7 bis 9.
and then he says, "This branch out of the same root with Berenice was her brother Ptolemy Euergetes. He had no sooner succeeded his father Ptolemy Philadelphus in the kingdom of Egypt than, burning to avenge the death of his sister Berenice, he raised an immense army and invaded the territory of the king of the north, that is, of Seleucus Callinicus, who, with his mother Laodice, reigned in Syria. And he prevailed against them, even to the conquering of Syria, Cilicia, the upper parts beyond the Euphrates, and almost all Asia. But hearing that a sedition was raised in Egypt requiring his return home, he plundered the kingdom of Seleucus, took 40,000 talents of silver and precious vessels, and 2,500 images of the gods. Among these were the images which Cambyses had formerly taken from Egypt and carried into Persia. The Egyptians, being wholly given to idolatry, bestowed upon Ptolemy the title of Euergetes, or the benefactor, as a compliment for his having thus, after many years, restored the captive gods." Okay, so okay, and the next paragraph we don't necessarily need to read. Okay, so we can see definitely that now the south returns and revenges himself against the north.
Wir können hier sehen, dass der Süden kommt zurück und rächt sich gegen den Norden.
Okay, so that must be then somewhere in this time to be looked for. Okay.
Muss denn in diese Zeitperiode irgendwo, wo wir danach Ausschau halten
Latest
sollen.
here at the end. Okay.
So, am allerspätesten
Well, it says
da
he
am Ende.
continued more years than the king of the north.
Sagt hier, dass er mehrere Jahre weilt als der König des Nordens.
Yes. So what are your thoughts about this? Okay.
Well, I'm just saying if it's right at the end, that doesn't really match up, but it might, I don't know what it means. But
So, wenn es ganz am Ende ist, dann wird das keinen Sinn machen, aber vielleicht verstehen wir das nicht richtig.
Yes. So, anyways, we definitely have now that the king of the south retaliates.
So, auf
Okay.
jeden Fall können wir sehen, dass der König des Südens kommt zurück und rächt sich oder will sich rächen.
Okay. And now, when we continue in verse 10,
Und jetzt, wenn wir fortsetzen, Vers 10,
it says, "But his sons shall be stirred up, and shall assemble a multitude of great forces, and one shall certainly come and overflow and pass through. Then shall he return and be stirred up even to his fortress. And the king of the south shall be moved with choler, and shall come forth and fight with him, even with the king of the north. And he shall set forth a great multitude, but the multitude shall be given into his hand. And when he hath taken away the multitude, his heart shall be lifted up, and he shall cast down many 10,000, but he shall not be strengthened by it." Okay, so in verse 10, we see now that the king of the north wants to retaliate again.
Vers 10 können wir sehen, dass der König des Nordens zurückschlagen möchte.
In verse 11 and 12 is then the king of the south pushes back again.
In Vers
Okay.
11 und 12 dann König des Südens stoßt zurück.
Okay, let's read about this.
Und lass uns darüber lesen.
So, again, Uriah Smith, he quotes verse 10,
So wie der Uriah Smith zuerst zitiert, der Vers 10,
and then he says,
dann sagt er,
"The first part of this verse speaks about sons in the plural, the last part of one in the singular." So we always need to pay particular attention to these little details in
so,
Daniel 11.
wir müssen immer sehr aufmerksam auf diesen kleinen Details sein in Daniel 11.
The sons of Seleucus Callinicus were Seleucus Cyrenius and Antiochus Magnus. These both entertained with zeal upon the these both entered with zeal upon the work of vindicating and avenging the cause of their father and their country. The elder of these Seleucus first took the throne. He assembled a great multitude to recover his father's dominions, but being a weak and pusillanimous
It's like a
Pusillanimous.
pusillanimous, okay, that's prince, both in body and estate, destitute of money and unable to keep his army in obedience, he was poisoned by 2 of his generals after an inglorious reign of 2 or 3 years. His more capable brother Antiochus Magnus was thereupon proclaimed king, who, taking charge of the army, retook Seleucia and recovered Syria, making himself master of some places by treaty and of others by force of arms. A truce followed, wherein both sides treated for peace, yet prepared for war. Okay, so the north retook some parts of the south, okay?
Das Norden hat einige Teile des Südens erobert.
And what did they then do?
Und was
Again?
taten sie dann?
Made a truce,
Sie
okay?
Wieder so ein Friedensübereinkommen getroffen.
And in this time of peace, what did they do again?
Und in dieser Zeit des Friedens, was haben sie wieder
Prepare for
getan?
war, okay?
Für Krieg vorbereitet.
So therefore it's always only a seeming time of peace, okay?
Deswegen ist es immer nur eine scheinbare Zeit des Friedens.
And because they make apparent agreements, they sit at one table but speak lies to one another.
Sie machen
Okay?
scheinbare Übereinkommen, die sitzen beide am selben Tisch, aber lügen einander an.
And they just prepare to overthrow each other in the future.
Sie bereiten nur in der Zukunft einander zu unterwerfen.
Okay, so a truce followed, wherein both sides treated for peace, yet prepared for war, after which Antiochus returned and overcame in battle Nicholas, the Egyptian general, and had thoughts of invading Egypt itself. Here's the one who should certainly overflow and pass through. Okay, so here the north clearly won these battles, okay?
So hier den Norden hat klar diesen Kämpfen gewonnen.
But in verse 11, then the king of the south returns now.
Aber in Vers 11 kommt König des Südens zurück.
And let's read now what this refers to, verse 11 and 12.
Lass uns lesen, worüber sich das bezieht, die Verse 11 und 12.
So this is now not from Daniel and Revelation, but it's taken from a book by A.T. Jones.
Also das ist nicht von Daniel in der Offenbarung entnommen worden, sondern von einem Buch von A.T. Jones.
GEP, what was it again? It was Great Empires, I think Great Empires of,
Persia.
no, the Great Empires of Prophecy.
So große Imperium des Propheties.
That's what it's called. Okay, so let's read now.
So lass uns lesen.
It says, as soon as the spring of 217 BC opened, Ptolemy Philopator, with an army of 75,000 men and 73 elephants, marched out of Egypt to do battle with Antiochus wherever they might meet. So the south was now Ptolemy Philopator.
So, der Süden war jetzt diese Ptolemy Philopator.
Antiochus was also early in the field with 78,000 men and 102 elephants. The battle was fought at Gaza. Antiochus was defeated with a loss of 10,000 killed and 4,000 taken prisoners, upon which he abandoned all his late conquests, and with the remains of his army returned to his capital. Those countries which Antiochus had the year before overrun now gladly returned to the protectorate of Philopator. Thus the king of the south was moved with choler, and came forth and fought with the king of the north. And the king of the north set forth a great multitude, but the multitude was given into his hand. Okay, so here the south won now.
So hier hat den Süden gewonnen.
And now let's continue.
Lesen wir weiter.
This great success caused Philopator to become so elated that in honor of himself he made a pompous progress through all the provinces that he had been recovered. As he passed through Palestine, he visited Jerusalem and at the temple offered sacrifices to the God of Israel, making at the same time oblations and bestowing considerable gifts. But not content with this, he attempted to force his way into the temple itself. But suddenly, as in the like instance of Uzziah, king of Judah, he was smitten from God with such a terror and confusion of mind that he was carried out of the place in the manner half dead. On this he departed from Jerusalem, filled with great wrath against the whole nation of the Jews, for that which happened to him in the place, and venting many threatenings against them for it. Okay, so we can see he was smitten of God. Okay,
Er war von Gott erschlagen worden
and now he wanted to take revenge on the Jews.
und er wollte sich den Juden rächen,
Let's continue.
gegen den Juden seine Rache nehmen.
On his return to Alexandria, Philopator resolved to be revenged upon the Jews who dwelt there, for his repulse and disgrace at the temple in Jerusalem. Accordingly, he published a decree, 216 BC, that none should be allowed to enter the palace gates who did not sacrifice to the gods. There were 3 ranks of people of the inhabitants of Alexandria, and by both Alexander the Great and the first of the Ptolemies, the Jews there were enrolled in the first rank. So, in what condition were the Jews?
So, in welchem Zustand war die Juden?
First rank,
Erste.
right? Philopator decreed that they should all be reduced to the 3rd or lowest rank. This required them to be enrolled anew. And he decreed that when they presented themselves for enrollment, they should have the badge of Bacchus, an ivy leaf, impressed upon them with a hot iron, and that all who should refuse this badge should be made slaves, and that if any refused to be slaves, they should be put to death. He did grant, however, that all who renounce the worship of Jehovah and accept initiation into the Egyptian religion should retain the original rank and privileges.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I had a thought on this. We had a discussion about this in Finland. So, I have a,
Well, before you start, everybody follows what was narrated here.
So, kann jeder folgen, was hier
Like, so basically,
gelesen haben?
the Jews were in the highest rank
So, die Juden waren der höchste Rang in der Zivilisation,
in the Gesellschaft.
Gesellschaft,
Yeah, but he wanted to revenge himself on the Jews. Okay.
aber er wollte sich gegen den Juden rächen
And therefore he basically reduced them now all to the lowest rank.
und deswegen hat er sie alle zum den dritten oder der niedrigsten Rang entfördert.
And he basically said, okay, you can now enroll yourself again for the first rank,
Und dann hat er gesagt, ihr konntet aber in der ersten Rang euch wieder
einschreiben,
einschreiben,
but only if you reject the worship of Jehovah and accept the Jewish religion.
aber nur
Ja.
Egyptian Religion.
Yes, Egyptian.
Aber nur wenn ihr Jehova ablehnt und die ägyptische Religion annimmt.
Yeah, but if they were not willing to accept the Egyptian religion and reject Jehovah,
Aber wenn sie dem nicht willig war, die ägyptische Religion anzunehmen, Jehova abzulehnen,
then they received this badge of Bacchus, it
dann
says,
haben sie auch diese Brandmarke, also diese Marke von Bacchus
which was this ivy leaf that was then
erhalten.
put upon their shoulders with a hot iron.
Und das war diese Blatt von Efeu, der auf ihren Schultern mit einem Brandeisen markiert wird.
And they were to be made slaves.
Und sie sollten Sklaven.
No, and if
If they
they
refused the badge, they were to be made slaves. If they refused to be made slaves, they would be killed.
should, let's say,
So,
he decreed that when they presented themselves for enrollment, they should have the badge of Bacchus and ivy leaf impressed upon them with a hot iron, and that all who should refuse, all that would refuse this badge should be made slaves.
so, wenn sie diese Brandmarke hatten, waren sie letztendlich der niedrigste in der Gesellschaft. Aber wenn sie diese Brandmarke ablehnen sollten, sie sollten Sklaven gemacht
And
werden.
that if they any refuse to be slaves, they should be put to death.
Und wenn sie die Sklaverei ablehnen würden, dann sollten sie den Tode übergeben.
Okay, and now Brahmaki wants to
Yeah.
share a thought.
it's this,
Bruder Mark hat
the
eine Idee.
Democrats in the Civil War
Also die Demokraten in der Bürgerkrieg,
put slavery in place.
und die haben die Sklaverei aufgestellt.
And the North were meant to be anti-slavery, but actually the same sentiments were actually part of the North, but just not openly.
Der Norden sollte, also öffentlich waren sie gegen Sklaverei, aber letztendlich hinter die Kulissen nicht.
But this is talking about Egypt here, this is talking about the South.
Und da spricht hier über Ägypten, also den Süden.
And you can clearly see that it's the globalists that are pushing the vaccine.
Und es ist klar zu sehen, dass es die Globalisten, die diese Impfung also erzwingen wollen.
And I have a thought here that this badge of Bacchus is the Impfpass.
Und ich habe gedacht, dass diese Bacchus Zeichen ist dieser Impfpass.
Because the globalist agenda is that they want to thin out the world, right? They want to take this vaccine, right?
Und die Globalisten, ihre Agenda ist es, dass die Weltbevölkerung viel kleiner machen wollen.
So if you don't take it, you're going to make you a slave. That's this.
I mean, at least, yeah,
Wenn du es nicht
definitely.
nimmst, sie wollen dir eine Sklave machen. Das ist Geist der Süden.
But what it does is it gives weight to the fact that it's got some relation to the mark of the beast.
Aber
Even though it's not, I mean, it's not the mark of the beast because the mark of the beast is the north, but it's a parallel to it, if you know what I mean. It gives some weight to this thing that the vaccine has the same DNA as the mark of the beast.
Also es gibt Gewicht dazu, dass diese Impfung denselben DNA hat wie das Malzeichen des Tieres, obwohl das Malzeichen des Tieres kommt von dem Norden her.
I mean, definitely today we can see at the moment that we can see this principle of this Impfpass. Okay,
So auf jeden Fall heute können wir diesen Prinzip von diesem Impfpass erkennen.
and that if you don't take it, yeah, you're now an outcast of society, basically.
Also wenn du es nicht nimmst, dann bist du die Gesellschaft also hinausgeworfen.
You don't have any rights.
Du hast keine Rechte mehr.
Okay, so definitely, so for today's time, I would agree with that.
So für unsere Zeit hier heute, da werde ich dazu stimmen.
So because remember Jeff and that, they used to say that this was Russia, right?
Jeff haben gesagt, dass dies Russland wäre.
Which was nonsense, but the spirit of it, communism, would be correct,
Das
right?
ist natürlich Schwachsinn, aber der Geist dessen, also den Kommunismus, das wäre dann richtig.
I mean, it's also interesting because in the Second World War, right, the Nazis, they also gave a badge.
Das ist auch interessant, in der Zweiten Weltkrieg, den Nazis, die haben auch diese Zeichen den Juden gegeben.
So, but they were the North. Okay,
Aber sie waren den Norden.
so it's
But
this.
that's illustrating the mark of the, that's symbolizing the
Yes.
mark of the beast, right?
Aber das symbolisiert der Malzeichen des Tieres.
So, yeah, it's definitely something we to really understand.
Das ist auf jeden Fall etwas, was wir verstehen müssen.
Also Philopater ist in 11.
Yes, 11 and
Ist
12.
Philopater.
Yes. Okay, so anyways, so we can see basically that he gave this badge of Bacchus,
So, wir können sehen, dass er diesen Brandzeichen von Bacchus gab.
and now let's go to the next point, what he then still did
Lesen wir, was er dann noch tat,
under the point 36.
unter den Punkt 36.
There were 3,000
300.
300 who adopted the heathen religion. These were at once cut off from all communication of any kind whatever with the rest of the Jews. Okay, so we had 300 faithful one in the story of Gideon, right here with 300 unfaithful one.
300 Treuen in der Geschichte von Gideon und hier 300 Untreuen.
Philopater took this, and as soon as they received this,
So, sobald dass sie dies erhielten,
or accepted the Egyptian religion, what happened with them?
sobald dass die ägyptische Religion annahmen, was geschah mit ihnen?
They were cut off from God's people, right?
Sie waren von Gottes Volk abgeschnitten.
So therefore, if you accept this offer that the King of the South makes, you're no longer part of God's people. Okay.
Deswegen, wenn du diese Opfer von König des Südens annimmst, bist du nicht
Angebot.
dieses Angebot. Stimmt. Dieses Angebot von König des Südens annimmst, dann bist du nicht mehr Teil Gottes Volkes.
So therefore, if we accept this vaccination in our time, yeah,
Also wenn wir diese Impfung in dieser Zeit annimmt,
and we know what it's all about, then we're getting cut off.
und da gerade, dass wir wissen, worüber es sich alles handelt, dann werden wir abgeschnitten werden.
Philopater took this as a further insult to himself and his religion, and in further vengeance decided to destroy all the Jews in all his dominions, beginning with all Egypt. Similar to Haman, right?
So, es ist ähnlich wie Haman.
He wanted to destroy now all the Jews.
Er wollte alle Juden zerstören.
He therefore commanded that all the Jews that could be found in Egypt should be brought in chains to Alexandria. There he shut them up in the Hippodrome, a large place where the games and races were celebrated, and appointed a day when they should be made a spectacle and should be destroyed by elephants maddened and drunk with mingled wine and frankincense. And so he also appointed a day like Haman.
Also hat auch einen Tag bestimmt, genauso wie Haman das tat.
Next paragraph.
Nächster Absatz.
As a matter of course, the devoted Jews were calling upon God, as in many a crisis in their history before. The great day came. The destruction was to be accomplished under the eye of the king himself. The great crowd was assembled in the hippodrome. The hour came, but the king had not arrived. The officers in the crowd waited, but still the king came not. Messengers were sent to inquire why the king delayed, and they found that he had got so drunk the night before that it was long after the hour appointed for the great spectacle before he awoke from his drunken stupor. The spectacle was postponed till the next day, but he got drunk again. And when his officers wakened him the next day in the time of the spectacle, he was still so drunk that they could not convince him that there was any such thing appointed. He thought the man out of their ways. Thanks. He thought the man out of their wits, who were trying to convince him that any such thing was ever planned. The spectacle was therefore postponed again till the next day. So it's the third day now.
Das ist der dritte Tag jetzt.
Then at the appointed hour the king came. When all was ready, the signal was given, and the drunken and maddened elephants were let loose. But lo, instead of rushing upon the Jews, as was expected, the elephants turned their rage upon all who came to see the show, and destroyed great numbers of them. And besides, several appearances were seen in the air, which much frightened the king and all the spectators, all which manifesting the interposal of divine power in the protection of those people, Philopator durst not any longer prosecute his rage against them, but ordered them to be all again set free. And fearing the divine vengeance upon him in their behalf, he restored to all their privileges, rescinding and revoking all his decrees which he had published against them.
That's a wonderful promise.
Yes.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
So at the third day, he now made a counter decree because God delivered them.
Und der dritte Tag, macht ein Gegendekret, weil der Herr sie befreite.
And he sets them again in first place.
Und
Over the
setzt sie
kingdom, right?
wieder in den ersten Stelle in der Gesellschaft.
Okay. So therefore we can see over and over again these same repeating patterns. Okay.
So, wieder und wieder können wir diese wiederholende Muster
And
erkennen.
it's interesting. Yeah, in Daniel 3, for instance,
Und das ist interessant, zum Beispiel in Daniel 3,
where Nebuchadnezzar makes the counter decree.
wo Nebukadnezar diese Gegendekret
He's the north, right?
er ist das Norden.
And so we see always the same pattern, but one time it's the north, one time it's the south.
Wir sehen
Okay.
immer wieder denselben Muster, aber mal hier ist es den Norden und da den Süden.
So there's definitely something we really need to understand about this. Okay.
So ist auf jeden Fall irgendetwas, was wir hier darüber verstehen müssen.
So this role of this south.
Diese
Okay.
Rolle des Südens.
And that's why, because we didn't really understand the South, we were surprised when Biden came up. Okay.
Und deswegen, weil wir die Rolle des Südens nicht verstanden haben, wir waren alle überrascht, als Biden an die Herrschaft kam.
Okay, and obviously the Lord really wants to teach us something with this time we're in at the moment. Okay.
Und natürlich, der Herr möchte uns was Bestimmtes lehren über diese Zeit, in der wir uns
He wants
jetzt
to
befinden.
explain to us the South.
Er möchte uns diesen Süden erklären.
Okay, so I think this would be a good prayer request for all of us that we would pray for this particular understanding.
Und das ist ein Gebetsanliegen für uns allen, dass wir gerade für dieses Verständnis beten sollen.
And then I think once we understand the South better, we also will understand Daniel 11 better.
Und wenn wir den Süden besser verstehen, dann werden wir auch zugleich Daniel 11 besser verstehen.
Amen.
Amen.
I mean, once you've gone through this complete reform line up to the seventh Sunday law,
Yes.
it will all be revealed.
Yes.
You'll see it all fit into place then.
Also wenn wir durch diese gesamten Reformlinie hindurchgegangen sind bis zu servilen Sonntagsgesetz, dann werden wir es alles verstehen. Das wird alles darin seinen Platz haben.
Yes. I'm desiring to see this.
Also ich möchte das ja gerne sehen.
Yes.
We have to be fruitful.
Amen.
The elephants all
Amen.
just,
Yes. And we have great promises that the Lord will protect us.
So,
Yeah.
What about the continuation here? Like slaves, 40,000 Jews?
Okay, let's read this also.
Also Punkt 40, so der letzte Absatz in der Notiz.
3 years afterward, however, there was an insurrection of the Egyptians, of which Philopator made occasion to wreak his wrath against the Jews, slaying 40,000 of them. Thus he cast down tens of thousands. After this, Philopator gave himself up wholly to dissipation, drinking, gaming, lasciviousness, were the whole employments of his life. He was ruled by his concubines, and the country was ruled by their favorites. Yes, so that would be again then the end of the time of peace, when he again makes war against God's
Das wäre
people.
wieder das Ende von Zeit des
Because it
Friedens,
was after 3 years, right?
nach 3 Jahren, wenn wieder Krieg gegen Gottes Volk macht.
Nice. Okay, so wonderful truths that are just waiting for us to dig them out and to understand them. Okay,
Wunderbare Wahrheiten, die warten nur darauf, dass wir sie ausgraben und sie verstehen.
but we need to be prayerful and giving ourselves up to the Lord.
Also wir müssen gebetsvoll sein und uns dem Herrn weihen.
Amen.
Amen.
Okay, then let's close with prayer.
Dann lass uns mal beten.